when we went back in 2007, I died. I died and I chose to come back to life during the test.
This is no longer about just protecting or hurting. This is about healing.
God, I mean, I can't even tell you how many death threats I've gotten from Indonesia saying, you should not be doing this. This is Indonesian only.
But what you're learning there was literally to take out your opponent completely.
The ancient Egyptians said we had 360 senses. So where are all the 355 more?
And you were teaching what I would call the law versus the spirit.
Spirituality and capitalism belong together. Those thoughts, those feelings, that comes from something bigger than I am. And together I believe we can all grow. That's how we're going to change the world. That's how we're going to change the planet.
Today on The Spiritual Capitalist, I've got a special guest. I don't really even know how to explain the magic this man has in him, but it's incredible. Mas Nate, as people know you as.
Sure.
I met you about 3 years ago, and I met Mas Nate. I got a phone call from a friend of mine that says, hey, would you like to, go through this training? And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. But before they would actually let me take the training, they said to me, they go, okay, listen, you're going to have to sign a non-disclosure, which was fine. But then it got a little bit weird from there. Then they said, and we got to make sure you're going to do no harm with this. So we're going to do a background check. And I said, why are you doing a background check? And he's like, well, because some of the things we teaches you how to see through walls, see with your eyes closed, break metal, and all of these different superhuman, superhero kind of things. And I thought, okay, this is a bunch of bullshit, but I'll play. And then after that point in time, I said, well, what do you want to get from this? And I said, what do you got? Like, what do you got? And they started naming off all these different things, like, more intuition, more like in alignment with yourself, deeper meditations, like all this stuff, and also more internal strength and energy and so on. And I said, well, I'll take it all. And I'm not going to limit myself. And so from there, I went into a training with you, and at the time your brother at that point, and we did this training where I was able to literally put some bean bags down on the ground, and you completely blindfolded, couldn't see anything, and eventually you would teach us how to see things with our eyes closed, with feeling, to feel color. And I could feel vibration differently than I've ever felt before. And then all of a sudden, I remember one of your teachers coming up and saying, oh, Dalton, I can see you're using your heart. And I thought, how do they just know I was feeling it from here to here? So there's this like mystery school going on in the world, and you've been able to take some of these mysteries and bring it to a small little town in Utah called Ogden. Now, Ogden's a small city. Not a lot of people know about it. It's got lots of great history behind it. But you have this center here where you've been bringing in people for the last 20 plus years, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Learning all of these different techniques. I watched a man turn around, and he took these pieces of metal that come off of, I believe, like pumping stations, right?
Yeah.
What do they call them?
Just a well pump handle.
Yeah, okay.
Old style well
Just
pump
a well pump handle. Yeah. Stack them up and breathe in, and with their energy, smash through it. Mm-hmm. And I watched a guy also get blindfolded, and they would say, hey, shoot here, shoot there. He was shooting every single target, and then he turned around and he started reading cards without his eyes. And I thought, this is such bullshit. But after watching you guys for years now, the last 3 years technically, what you guys have done is pretty amazing, man.
Thanks.
And so I'm grateful that you came here today on the show, The Spiritual Capitalist, to talk about your history, where you come from, what this is all about, and how it can impact entrepreneurs, how they can bring this into their spiritual journey to build impact the planet. And obviously the bigger impact they have, well, the bigger the planet wins. And so thank you again so much for coming.
It's my pleasure, Dalton. Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it, man. So tell me a little bit about your history. Like first and foremost, what is this technique called? Okay. Where does it come from? And how did you even find it?
All right. Well, first of all, my name is Nate Zeleznick, and I'm from actually a smaller town than Ogden. I'm from a little town called Huntsville, Utah. And growing up in there's a predominant religion in Utah, and I'm not part of that church. And so I was heavily bullied, both in school, but then also had a quite a bit of abuse from my mother at home. So I didn't really ever feel safe. So when I was about 12, I started having spontaneous out-of-body projections. I would leave my body, I would see my body, I'd be able to travel. And it's like my soul was telling me, okay, listen, it's going to be okay. There's more to what your actual experience is than just what you're experiencing. And so that's how my mystical.
Did that scare you when that happened?
Yes.
Like all of a sudden you're like laying there 12 years old, doing your
Yeah.
thing. Next thing,
Yeah.
what was that experience like?
Well, it was like my entire body would be paralyzed and I would sink into my bed and then I would start to rise up through my sheets and then roll over and I would be able to see my body. Sometimes I would snap right back in and sometimes I'd be able to travel out through the house. And when I thought something was wrong or maybe I was sick, but who am I going to talk to about that, you know? And so when I was 16 and I got my first job, the very first thing I ever bought with my own money was a book called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Institute in Virginia. And so after that, it just went, I was like, oh, thank God. It's not just me. I'm not having a brain tumor. The CIA uses this. Okay, so what else is there?
So
And
you didn't feel alone at that point in time. Like you were sitting there and to paint a picture, because here's the thing. I want to paint this picture very clearly. You're having these experiences where you're going out of body. And then at 16 years old, you finally are able to get this knowledge, because at that time there's no internet. This probably isn't in the local libraries.
Definitely
So
not.
you found this book, which, it sounds like all of a sudden now you're like, okay, listen, I'm not alone. There's other people doing these types of things. And as you said, this is something common in the military. This has been something used for a long period of time for people to be able to astral project. And, I've had a few experiences that way, but nothing like what you're describing to me.
Well, and like I said, I think it was more of a preservation mechanism by my soul. And so that said, that's what really stepped me into the psi realm, is understanding that there's a lot more to our physical body and there's a lot more to existence than our physical body. And so that's where it really got started. So I started on a deep path of meditation and trying to understand more about what is possible for us to actually do and be. But then when I was 23, as a longtime martial artist, always interested in Chi, but where are you going to learn that? In the normal strip mall martial arts school? No. They're not going to have anything like that. And so when I ordered a course out of Black Belt magazine that guaranteed me inner power in 2 weeks, or I got my money back, I was like, okay, I can do that.
So wait. So you open up as because you're at this time, it sounds like because of some of the traumas, some of the stuff going on with mom, some of the bullying going on in school, you're like, look, I'm going to go into martial arts. Like, I'm going to learn how to protect myself because right now I don't feel very protected.
Yeah.
Which I would say most people's traumas lead to their purpose, which makes sense, exactly where you're at, which I love. At that point in time, you find this magazine because you've been studying lots of different things of martial arts. You look in the back of the magazine and there's this little ad.
Yeah. And it had a picture of a small Southeast Asian boy getting a brick broken over his stomach and it's like exploding. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
Well, that's badass.
So, all right. So I pay my $20, I get my little pamphlet, but it came with a VHS tape. Now, the pamphlet was total bullshit. There was nothing of use in there other than a really dangerous method that actually, a story from another time, but it actually caused me to go blind in my left eye for 3 days. It was it was just stick figure drawings and nondescript. And I, being, in the gym, lifting weights a lot and martial arts, just a warrior, pushed it too hard, hurt myself. But the VHS tape. Now, on that, I knew where Indonesia was, and I knew that I had some shirts from there, but I didn't know anything about their culture. So when I saw Indonesian martial arts, and there was a documentary with probably 7 or 8 different styles, but there was one that really stuck out. There was these people in these white tunics with a red belt and black pants, and they were taking, like you were saying, steel bars and leaf springs from trucks and breaking them, stone. Just barely touching them, breaking them with their head.
What year is this? Is this in the 80s?
This is 1992.
Okay, so 92.
No, excuse me. Sorry, 1998.
So we've had, like, this point in time, we've had Karate Kid, we've had First Blood, we've had all those really cool
all the
karate films.
Jean-Claude,
that was the best time at that
Steven
point in
Seagal,
time, right? So all of a sudden you see a real life, bigger than like martial artists that are doing things that are, sounds like inexplainable compared to what you have been learning and seeing at that point in time.
Oh, without a doubt. But when I saw the most amazing part of it was people who were blindfolded or blind who were running through obstacle courses. They were shooting targets out of people's hands. They were driving cars and riding motorcycles through Jakarta traffic. And then it had blind people who were able to, people would come down from for a demonstration. They would draw something on a whiteboard, and these people with their eyes totally white would reproduce what they saw, or they would read what that person wrote on there. And it had the assistant to the Sultan of Oman was there saying, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. They can do things that you or I would have trouble doing, even if they're blind." And like you, I thought it was bullshit. I mean, how could this be real? Come on. I always wanted to be a ninja and a Jedi. I wanted to be a ninja Jedi my whole life. But come on. But then something happened. And I think a lot of people have had what I call a synchrodestiny, where it's not just something that aligns, it's something that aligns and you can't ignore it. It's like a spiritual imperative. You have to follow this path or you're going to regret it. And so I watched this video. I saw these people doing these things. I watched it several times because it was really cool. The very next day, I just decided I was going to take a different route to work. And it led me to a stoplight right in front of the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And a woman trying to cross the street with her dog almost died right in front of me.
Oh, man.
So she was getting ready to cross, and the tones came on for the dog to lead her across, and it led her face first into the light pole.
Oh, geez.
Right off my bumper. And so I was like, oh, damn. Ding, light bulb went off. I wonder if those Indonesian people can help her. And I'd never met a blind person. There's no blindness in my family that I'm aware of. But I had to do this. It was like a calling. And so I went and I scoured the internet as best I could at the local library, because this is in dial-up days. So they were the ones with high-speed internet. And right about the time that I saw that lady is when they launched their very first website. It was almost within a couple days. Coincidence? I think not. And so
I don't believe in coincidences.
No.
Ever.
no. And so what happened was I reached out to them. They had been looking for an American representative for a couple years. They had never allowed a non-Indonesian person to learn this in 500-year history. Although at this time, since it was released in 1963 to help stop a coup d'etat and the government being overthrown by the military in 1963, they'd trained over 1 million people, so they said.
Since 1963, they had trained 1 million people because where does this originally come from?
Jakarta, Indonesia. Well, actually, Central Java, Yogyakarta, Indonesia, is where the birthplace of this. But then it spread throughout Indonesia. And to this day, I mean, it's used. It's standard training for every branch of the Indonesian military, including their most elite special forces. They use this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So
Jump into that real quick because there's a story about that I heard and I've told people, but I'm going to have it out of your mouth because it is the most wild thing. So actually, I'll stop. I'll leave that for a second.
Sure.
Just going to leave this for a pause. So here you are. You see what's happening right now. This lady, you get this aha moment or this inner knowing moment, which I think most entrepreneurs or most people that are on the path, when they find it becomes very difficult to not listen.
Correct.
It's like it just keeps showing up and showing up and showing up. And it's like, hey, this is where you need to go. This is what you need to do. So you're here in Utah. It's in the 90s. You're in your 20s. And all of a sudden you find out that, listen, they're looking for someone here in the U.S. and it's in Indonesia, which Indonesia, I believe, from Utah is probably about 24-hour flight.
Yeah.
It's a fair journey. Like this is not a small journey. It's not like going next door.
No.
So what do you do?
All right. So I reached out to them, and it turns out, it took me a while to find somebody who could speak English. But once I did, and I said, hey, I really want to bring them here to the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind. I want to help promote this. I know I'll never be able to learn it. That's not a problem. But I have to do this. And so what they did is I helped to sponsor the very first demonstration of this art, which in Indonesia, it's called Merpati Putih, which in English, that means white dove. So this white dove method of martial arts, breath work, energy work, healing, internal energy generation, and then also extrasensory, or I should say supersensory abilities. I helped bring them over here. And so I was just floored. Once I actually saw blind people that could do this, and they were like driving my car, and they were able to come into my house and they scanned right through the drawers and knew where everything was, pulled the stuff out, cooked us dinner, and we're just like, holy shit, this isn't, for me, I did this because I was really skeptical, Dalton. I wanted to see for myself. And so they came over, got them on all of our news stations here in Utah. And we were able to, I actually went to the Indonesian embassy in Washington, D.C. and had dinner with the ambassador and got to see them do demonstrations there. And they started to train me a little bit in the breath work. And it's, as you know, there is nothing like this stuff.
This is like feeling, just to give you an idea at home. There's meditation. There's, if you've done breath work where you bring your stomach, like that whole thing. So there's that. This stuff is like being waterboarded. It feels like you're being suffocated.
By yourself.
By yourself.
Nobody else doing it.
Exactly. And you're also exercising at the same time.
Correct.
It is one of the most intense experiences that I know that the body, that you can physically put your body through.
Correct.
But the results are incredible as well.
Absolutely right. And so when I saw them here and I got to experience a little bit of this, and when they were leaving, and I was going to put them back on the plane, the chairman of the foundation, he came to me and he said, okay, when they first got here, let me rewind a little bit. When they first got here, there was an Indonesian guy at the airport, at the jetway. This is before 9/11, so you could actually walk out to greet your friends. He said, hey, my name is Dr. Heru, and I'm friends with the 11th generation heirs, and I'm going to be hanging out with you while they're here. And I'm like, great, awesome, good to meet you. But when they were leaving, they said, okay, he's going to be your teacher. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And so he is a former Indonesian Special Forces trainer for the Merpati Putih system in power and in combat. So the breaking of hard, like iron bars and things.
This guy's no joke.
Generation of the electricity and stamina and for military use. Well, he didn't want us to learn. He didn't want me to learn. And he said no. And the 11th generation heirs said, please, look at what they're willing to do. It's time for us to bring this to the world. So he started training me. And about 3 weeks later, I was joined by one of my younger brothers, Mike. And together, we went through a very accelerated, I'll just call it gnarly training regimen. If you can imagine what you went through, times that by a 50, because he didn't want us to learn. So he put us through basically what the Special Forces would have been put through. And he's like, hey, listen, if they quit, it's not my fault.
So he's trying to break you the whole time.
Absolutely.
So what gives you the fortitude, the inner light, like the inner strength to keep going? I mean, you're not prepared for this stuff. I mean, I know you've been doing martial arts, you've been doing all these things, and you'd gotten your ass kicked a lot as a kid, and you'd gone through all this different stuff. What makes you and your brother continue to push through this? Like, what is it?
First of all, the desire to be a ninja Jedi. Second of all, those blind people. When I got to actually see what this could do, possibly to help people who can't see, to be able to perceive in a different way. And there was also, I was not that interested in myself. Almost like, I travel out of body. That's okay. I wasn't that interested in seeing without my eyes, but I really wanted to help. I've just always been that kind of person that I see something, I want to do something. And so I'm not sure if that answers your question, but when I was able to see that and I really got to know them, and I still had never met a blind person, but I was like, there are 12 million legally blind people in this country.
12 million.
That's a lot of people. But what I didn't know is how freaking hard this is and what it takes to actually be able to get to that point of being able to do it. It's not everybody can do it. Very few people can actually do that. But the cool thing about this is the method, just the breath work itself, affects us in numerous ways, physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and energetically in ways that we can actually tangibly feel. And we can actually measure this, a lot of it, whether it's pulse rate, pulse oxygenation, carbon dioxide levels. We can look at the acid-base shift of your blood. We can see a change. We can see it quickly that nothing else I've ever seen does. And so that alone, that's what I'm doing now, is I really focus on the health and the healing and the peak performance of athletes and people in high levels of business and corporate C-suites, people who can make large change by being a better version of themselves, helping
Makes
to affect
sense.
more people. But back then...
Yeah, but you walk your talk. So back then you go through this training, he kicks your guys' ass for quite some time. He wants you to quit, and eventually you don't quit.
No. And eventually he got to like us. So that was nice because he saw that our intentions and our heart is pure. we wanted to really do good things with this. It wasn't just us trying to rip people off or take away from the Indonesian culture. He was a very strong purist. This is Indonesian, and to this day, there are still some people like that. I mean, I can't even tell you how many death threats I've gotten from Indonesia saying, you should not be doing this. This is Indonesian only. It's like, first of all, my personal perspective, and maybe I'm the only one with this, but our world is in a whole state of hurt.
Yeah, I would agree.
Whether people are like, I don't believe in climate change. Well, do you believe in the inversion here, that when it's so bad, it's so dangerous that they say it's like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for every single person? What, are you telling me that's okay?
Yeah.
It hurts you. Our air, our food, our water, our airwaves, our minds are being filled with toxins at all times.
Poisons constantly.
If we're not strengthening ourselves as much as possible, as quickly as possible, it's just going to lead to more death, more illness, less happiness. And when it comes down to it, really, Dalton, if you think about it, we all came here to experience. That's why we're here.
It's an experiential world, absolutely.
The Earth School is experience.
Could not agree more.
And so the more that we're able to experience, and not just in the realm of, oh, here's another cancer treatment or some more pharmaceutical pills that are going to make you sick, that's also an experience, yes. But that's not the one I prefer. I prefer health and vitality and love,
agree with you 100%.
Peace and connection. And so that's the main reason why I've continued to do this. And so for 20 years, owning one of the largest martial arts schools in Utah, 9,000 square feet, training thousands of people from ages 5 to 85 in the just the martial arts or in the breathwork, the healing, the extrasensory perception, and doing all these different things alongside with my brother. I couldn't be prouder of what we did together for 20 years. And then it came a time where our visions really took a strong split, where we have a different way of what we want to make an impact in the world in a different way, where our visions don't align with each other, but we're still doing great things using this method.
Of course.
To make sure that
it's cool that you guys were able to do those things together, learn those things together. Obviously, in a lot of paths, we go separate directions because we have different tools we want to use. We have different passions. We have different things we want to explore. Not one's not right. It just depends where you want to be. So what I want to talk about a little bit though more so is that when you do get this martial arts, right? They tell you, okay, listen, this is where you're at. Because I know that you guys end up going to Indonesia, correct?
3 times, yeah.
And this was like, just so people can understand, because I don't think you're doing a great job of really explaining what you really went through, right? And I know it sounds unbelievable when you hear this, but I think this is the interesting part of it, because once I think people can realize what they can do with these skill sets, these tools, that's when people are going to start calling you. They're going to go to your website and be like, okay, cool. I really want to know how to do this. I want to know how this is going to benefit my life. But before we get into that, how it can benefit your life, like we're just kind of going through slightly, tell me a little bit about what happens in Indonesia. You now get the ability. They teach you. They say, yes, this is a great thing. You go back and forth. Why do you go back and forth? What are some of the experiences? And then I want to talk a little bit about the military training over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to before we went to Indonesia, we brought a couple of trainers over here.
Yep.
And we got a chance to test to more of an advanced rank here. But then it was time we had to go over there, because at a certain rank, you can only test in one place in the entire world and only once a year. But they made it a special exception for us in 2005. We went over there. It was off-peak season. It wasn't time for the national test, but they called in every single every single member of the Master Council to come in and test us, including the Grand Masters of the system. So here's the 2 non-Indonesian people ever allowed to train in this, and we're just being stared down by the masters of the system, and they're just fine-tooth comb picking through every single technique. It was something we were not prepared for, but we rose to the occasion because our desire to help other people is so strong that we're like, screw it, we're doing this no matter what. And you want to talk about grit and conviction. When we went back in 2007, I died. And I chose to come back to life during the test. That's how brutal the tests are. There have been numerous deaths in their tests and in their training. It's obviously not a goal, but
well, hold on. You can't say I just died and then I came back. You can't just leave it at that. Explain.
Get to it. So for their national tests, it's like a soccer field but bigger, and huge amount of people testing. So in order to do this in Central Java, the daytime temperature is in between Mount Vesuvius and hell. It's somewhere in there. There's no going outside and exercising hard during the daytime there. So you train and you test all night long. And then for the next day, you rest a little bit, and then you keep testing. So it's basically essentially a 3-day test with an hour of sleep each night. We got one egg and one little glass of mung bean soup in the bottom, and that was it for 3 days. It's a test like none other. It's definitely it's an experience. And so what happened is they bring in these big generators to run the lights, big canister lights to light the field, and they blindfold you, so you have to do your whole movement test blindfolded in basically a sand pit. But they stuck me right next to the generator, blowing black smoke at me.
Oh.
And so I'm pretty sure it was carbon monoxide poisoning, but I'm familiar with the out-of-body state. So we got to the end of the test, and I fell forward, but I was still standing up. My body fell forward, and I'm like, oh, shit.
What an
pardon
experience.
Pardon my French, but I speak French. So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, shit. And so my brother and our trainer dragged me off the side and leaned me up against a tree, and they were slapping me and pouring water on me. The medical team was running, and I'm aware of this going, okay, do I come back? Do I really want to continue on with this test? I know what's coming next. This is my second test. Well, I'm not going to leave my brother here to take care of my body, and I'm not done with my mission. And I want to experience more life. So I decided to come back. I come back into my body, and they're like, oh, thank God. And I'm like, okay, I need a second. Okay, they're like, okay, here's your sparring gear. Put on your cup. It's time for fighting. So then we fight bare knuckle. We wear a cup and a mouth guard, and that's it. And we were fighting in the dark with, people judging, and then I won, did well. My brother, nobody touched him. He's an amazing combat technician. And then we went on to run. And so when we run, well, you're barefoot, and it's almost a marathon. So it's about 20 miles, but about 6 miles of this is over a volcano, and it's not paved. So you're running basically on lava, not basically, you're running on lava rock for about 6 miles up and over this volcano. Then you get down on the beach, after run on the beach. Then you have to come back and break humongous stacks of steel and stone and concrete bricks that of differing hardnesses using inner power. Then you're done with your test. And then you have to go do your initiation if you pass. And that takes a whole nother night.
And just to stop there,
Yeah.
the only way that this is possible is because you've learned how to be able to bring all this energy into your body, using breath, using these different types of things that you teach, which does give you that ability to become, what you're talking about is superhuman, like to do things that nobody does. They just simply don't do these things. You're talking about, hey, listen, I chose to come back. I saw that. I was aware of that.
Correct.
And it amazes me to hear that, because when you start to listen to some of the stuff that goes on with the military and how they're jumping out of airplanes and they can't see, and then they have to land. And when you tell people this, they're like, yeah, so they jump out of airplanes, they're blind, they have to know when to pull it, or they're going to die. Then when they land, apparently they have to go use their power, which sounds wild when you say it out loud, to find a key, to go get into a vehicle, to drive a vehicle blindfolded, to then get a gun to shoot a target, all while being blindfolded.
Yeah, so that when I first heard this story,
it's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
it is. It's pretty out there, and so this is only the most elite special forces can do this. That obviously this is not something everybody does, but yeah. So they do. As it was told to me by one of the people who has done this, he was one of the commanders of this. They're called the Kopassus, which is their most elite commando paratroopers. He said, okay, yeah, so we jump out of the plane, the halo jump. So you're at like 30,000 feet. And then you have to pull the right spot, the right altitude, and you're monitored. So they've got a hood on while they're doing this. And so they have people jumping with them, and then you have to land in a certain area. And once you do that, then you have to go and find the key somewhere in the sand, and then get in a Jeep, drive through the jungle to a place where there's a house, and then you have to find the key to the house, unlock the key, go and go inside the house, then there's an envelope on a table, and you have to read what's inside the envelope without opening it, all while blindfolded. And they monitor them and they grade them on this. And I was thinking once again, bullshit, but then the guy was so serious. I mean, this is a special forces like colonel.
Those guys Indonesians have a lot of honor about them. Like I've met a lot of Indonesians. That's where Kratom comes from. Is Indonesia.
Yep.
So in the forest, or not in the forest, in the jungles, but the honor that those men that I've met, like they're not there to bullshit you. Like it's not part of their culture. It's not who they are. Like they're really truly very authentic people. Yeah. So to hear that, I was like, this is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So taking all of that, right? So you've gone through all this. You have your school. You're doing all of that, right? So right now, as you said before, you've decided to go your own path with the white dove method, correct?
Well, the white dove method is actually the breath work from Indonesia. Yeah. So the Merpati Putih system, that's the white dove method. But now my business is the Integrated Ascension Method, or the IAM.
So it's the IAM. I love that.
Yeah.
And with that, you've now started to take these same techniques and you're combining them with some things I love, which is biohacking and electrofrequencies and just a lot of different things. We're combining science, or a lot of these types of devices and things I like to play with, now adding it to, with breath work and with energy and so on. So tell people at home a little bit about this, because this is so cool what you're doing.
So excited, Dalton. And so, for 24 years, I taught thousands of people, and I was very strict. Not strict, but I should say very strict about what I was teaching.
It was a mastery of what that's how you were taught, though, right? The mastery, and you were teaching what I would call the law versus the spirit.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So the thing about the white dove method itself from Indonesia is it helps people have amazing abilities, but there's not a real strong spiritual advancement component. There really isn't. So seeing without your eyes, what good does that do you? If you're blind, it's great. But if you're not, what does it really do for you? Is it just an ability you can then I look cool in front of my friends, or I can go to Vegas and clean house with blackjack? Is it egotistical that you're learning it for? Is it actually a spiritual consciousness advancement technique? And that's something that there are many systems for doing this, right?
There definitely is. And that's one of the things when we were working together, I said to you, listen, this is really cool stuff. Yeah. Like, it's amazing. Why, what is the benefit? Why would I want to do this on a daily basis? Why would I want to waterboard myself? What is the purpose? What is the intention of doing this? Because one of the things about the skills that we haven't talked about, when you guys are teaching combat, you're not teaching combat like, oh, hey, listen, just gonna, lightly handle this. This skill set that is really taught to mingle, and I don't want to call it murder, but to absolutely take out your opponents, because they were doing it in the palace, from what I understand, right? Like to be able to protect the royal family, and so the women could use these techniques to be able to take out the military. Mm-hmm. I mean, when we think about this, it sounds like a comic book or a movie. But what you're learning there was literally to take out your opponent completely, not kind of. Yeah. Break their arms with, if you can break through metal, you can easily snap through an arm or a leg or whatever.
Fun story. Not a fun story. So 2005, we're in Bali with my team. And so they went off to do some shopping, and they got back and everybody's just rattled. Because over there, some people run rackets, right, where they'll distract you while other people pick your pocket.
Sure.
So
lots of places do that,
right? So one of our students was sitting there, and this guy came up and started yelling at him and challenging him and pushing him, and he's like, "What the hell's going on?" He felt something in his back pocket. He just dropped his hand and just like a downward, knife hand, judo chop, and snapped the guy's arm.
Oh,
the guy reached in, and the guy's his arms hanging, and they're like, "Get out of here! We're not going to Indonesian jail." They got back as fast as they could. So yeah, it is possible. It's not something we ever want to do, but the Merpati Putih white dove system was made for battlefield combat. It was not made for sport. It has now been turned into sport so that they can actually do this safely. But the original thing was, it always ended in maiming or death, because if, think of Braveheart, right? You've got 10,000 people coming together. You can't sit there and trade blows with people, or else you're immediately killed by somebody behind you. You need to be able to dispatch onto the next. So they would fight with blades, a lot of the time poisoned. So it's no joke. The Asians have found a lot of ways to hurt each other with their bare hands and with blade combat, and then projectiles came in later. But with that in mind, I kind of forgot where you were at.
Well, no, it's okay, no problem. I appreciate you sharing that. But what we were talking about is that you've taken something that was meant for that, right?
Yeah.
This martial arts that was really meant to protect, but not just protect, but to be able to take out your enemy or whoever's trying to attack you. But now you've been able to take those same techniques using breath and a handful of other tools, which we can get into, to be able to really do something with it that is outside of the martial arts component of it.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And so
That's what excites me about this conversation.
Well, during COVID, when the pandemic hit, over half the martial arts schools in the country closed within 6 months permanently. Ours was one of those that could not survive because people didn't want to spar over Zoom, and the attrition rate for martial arts, fitness, dance studios was just atrocious. So we had to pivot very hard and very quickly to start working in a seminar format for the people who were brave enough to actually want to travel during the pandemic times and teach them the ability to see without your eyes, or at least start that. So really what it is tapping in, and I'm going to dive into a little bit of nerddom for just a second.
Please do.
It's not seeing without your eyes. Okay? Your eyes are what sees. But the thing is we actually see with our consciousness, not with our eyes. And there are many stories of people doing this. There's actually the fantastic Henry Sugar by Roald Dahl, the author Roald Dahl. It's actually on Netflix. Just type in Henry Sugar. It's a fantastic short. It's a short movie. Benedict Cumberbatch is in it. It's really good. But it's also about somebody who could do this back in the turn of the 19th century or 1800s to 1900s. In India, they would travel around. They would actually have doctors come and blindfold them. They could do anything that you or I do, ride bikes, do anything they could just see. But it took them 15 years of meditating every single day to develop this, and only like 1 in 1,000 people could do it, right? But the thing is this has been known for a while, these kind of abilities. And what's cool about where we're at right now is that instead of just hearing about it, people are able to videotape it. People are able to then experience it. People are able to share this in the digital world so that people can start to really unlock who they can possibly be, rather than A, just believing, or B, not knowing even how to even do anything and start. And it's piquing the interest of a lot of people. So it's not just seeing without your eyes. It's also developing your intuition. It's also about stress relief, because stress is it's probably one of the number one killers that there is. 90% of diseases caused by stress, according to the CDC. So with that in mind, if you can lower your stress, you're going to lower your rate of disease, right? And Joe Dispenza is a big proponent of this, and he's been doing a lot of great work showing that if we're able to tap into the quantum, we're able to really start regulating our own hormones, we're able to mitigate or reverse different diseases and physical ailments. And I've actually seen cancer go away within a week of a meditation. And it's like, completely verified by their doctors. I've seen people get out of wheelchairs and walk. It's just amazing what we can do when we realize how powerful we actually are. And that's the magic of the Integrated Ascension Method, is to help people understand we are so much more powerful as creative, infinite, divine beings than we've been led to believe, or the physical world tells us we can. But once we're able to transcend what we hear, smell, feel, taste, and touch, smell, all the 5 senses, the ancient Egyptians said we had 360 senses. So where are all the 355 more? Well,
I wasn't aware of that. I'd never heard that before.
There's a lot more than meets the eye or the ears or any of the other senses. And so, but the thing is how do you do this? So that's one thing that's so neat about the Integrated Ascension Method and this breath work and this meditation is, you're right, it's been taken from a combative martial art, killing art, in order to then help people in a way where it doesn't require A, them to a waterboard themselves, which it's not waterboarding. You're holding your own breath, right? But
It feels like it.
It does.
It does feel like you're suffocating.
It does. That's just your amygdala having an experience. It's okay.
It is definitely having an experience.
But as you push that yard marker further out there, you get better and better. It becomes more comfortable. That's just a matter of time. Just like the world record for breath holding is over 23 minutes.
23 minutes.
Not by a dolphin or an alligator, but that's a human being. So they didn't start at that though. So
Of course not.
We can
Of course
we
not.
can do this.
But yeah, and you can move through it. I'm just saying the
sure.
initial experience of that it's an experience, right? And like you said, we're here to experience things.
Right.
That's what I love about this world. There are so many things to experience. There's so many ways to push out of our comfort zones and so many ways to grow as a human being. And it's like, once I think that I realize something or have been able to accomplish something, I'm like, oh wait, what else is next? Where else can I expand as a human being? Because I want to keep turning the stones over and over and be like, oh, well, there's this thing and there's this next thing. And I want to be able to expose in the most loving way possible those people that are doing things that are miraculous, things that can change people's lives that maybe a lot of people don't know about. Like, hey, listen, there's these people out here doing amazing things that doesn't sound possible or probable. But then what's amazing about that training as well, if this is possible, if now I see something that I thought was impossible is possible, what other things am I missing out on this world that I once thought was impossible that's possible, that leads me now to those 300 and something odd senses that the Egyptians believed in, right? So I think that's really incredible that you're able to do both those things. And I would also say, being in 2024, when we went through the pandemic, when we went through the dark night of the soul as the world, at that point in time that you say, okay, listen, this is no longer about just protecting or hurting. This is about healing. This is about taking that same kind of energy and doing something about it because you've done your own plant-based journeys, you've done your own experiences. So when I say these terms, what does this mean to you when I say that like heal people and hurt people hurt people?
Oh, isn't that the truth? Well, and let's take it like the 100 monkeys effect, okay? So
Fair.
we know what that is, right?
Absolutely.
So the thing is how many people does it take to wake up and become conscious of what our higher abilities are before we reach that 100th monkey and it starts to spread throughout the collective consciousness? I don't know. But that's
I don't either, but
that's why I'm here.
I love it. Part of my passions and part of my desires on this earth is to awaken human beings.
Yes.
And by awakening human beings, I'm not saying I'm the most awakened person, right? Like I don't have it all figured out. I don't know all these things, and I would assume you don't either. But isn't it fun just uncovering different things that we can continue to add on our path? And so if somebody's like, hey, listen, Nate, this sounds really fascinating. Tell me more about what you're doing. Tell me more about like what I could experience by working with you with your current methods, with what you're doing, because there's plenty of entrepreneurs that are stressed. Yeah. There's plenty of entrepreneurs that are looking for intuition. They're looking to seek the answers. They're wanting to find that next step and maybe even looking for a spiritual path, right? Yeah. Everyone's looking for their own spiritual path. I think a lot of times, even if we feel like we have it, there's always more to it. It's more the unveiling of the veil itself.
Right. And there's a huge mass exodus from different religions right now because people they're tired of the dogma and they're having experiences that their religion cannot then validate for them or have an understanding for it. And they're just like, okay, well, I have to find my own path, which is beautiful. And so with the Integrated Ascension Method, what that does is I decided I was going to combine the 16th century breath work, meditation, energy work, the sensory abilities, the internal healing of ourselves, but also the healing of other people, both in person and at a distance, using a quantum healing modality. And combine that with things like vibroacoustic technology with In Harmony. A good friend of mine, Craig Goldberg, who owns In Harmony, this is something where you would sit or you would lay on the In Harmony Sound Lounge and your entire body vibrates at different frequencies that activate different energy centers and energy lines in the body and take you on a journey. So when you couple that with the meditation techniques and the breath cadences that create heart-brain coherence, they create a lowered pulse rate, they create lower blood pressure, they increase the oxygen uptake in the body. There's all kinds of physical effects of the Integrated Ascension Method or White Dove Method meditations. Combine that with that, and it's just like, pew, it's incredible. So then also the hard breath work, the waterboarding, if you will, with different vibrations, it takes it to another level. I've only been doing this for 24 years. And I say that truthfully. I've only been doing this for 24 years, but it's made an amazing difference in my own practice. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. So with the In Harmony meditation cushion, the brain tap brainwave entrainment system, also the Sensei neurofeedback brain training system, which helps you fire and wire new neural pathways in your body. And it teaches people how to not just meditate, but get into a meditative state. It doesn't put you there. It trains you how to get there. Different. One is a crutch. The other one is self-sufficiency. There's nothing like it. It's a 5-in-1 brain training system called sense.ai. And I have people can go to my website and actually order that through the website. It's a fantastic company. I love them. A lot of our friends actually are early adopters of this. Chris is one of the main funders of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
And Preston Campbell, you know Preston, he ordered his. And so, yeah, a lot of our friends have this as well. And so then with Team Light and also iPyramids, there are these amazing tachyon pyramids and torus technologies that are powered that create literally a chamber for you to walk in and you can feel the vibrations.
Yeah, I can't wait to experience
It's
that.
so cool.
Yeah, that's going to be really fantastic experience. You know what I love though, as I'm listening to you to speak about these things. It's like sometimes when we figured out a way to master the physical world in business, like okay, we got this, we got our systems, we got our ideas. It's creating revenue, it's doing these things, and that's great. I mean, because you have to have that tool here as well, which builds these types of technologies. But what I notice about our friends, and what I notice about people that are think the same way, that have been business, like they were business owners for a long time. They did a bunch of their shadow work. Typically, a lot of it was plant-based medicine. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot more to this. Yes, we need capitalism, right? Because that's how we're going to produce these technologies. That's how we're going to be able to fund changes. That's how we're going to be able to come together and create change with lobbyists. And we're going to be able to do these things and awaken some of these technologies in the world, whether it be plant technologies, which I do believe plant-based medicine is a technology in itself.
Of course.
If it's physical, like, we're talking about these devices, if it's bringing up older technologies from martial arts or breath work or from India or Indonesia or in these places, the world needs those things, which is bringing in spirituality. And to me, spirituality is a very simple thing. I've been thinking about this a lot. How do I explain this? It's simply a way to be able to go within, or even as I'm sitting here now, and just to listen, to clear out all the noise, all the garbage, all the junk, which a lot of these devices do, and your breath work and or your exercises, I believe does that. Like it really does do that. And it took me a while to really sit with him, like, okay, what is this about? And there's many ways to reach that path. There's not just one, but it happens to be that your path is a pretty badass path.
I like to think so. I like to think so. And, to that end, like I said, we live in such a toxic world, but a lot of people don't know this. But, I mean, did you know that 70% or more of all the toxins in your body are gotten rid of through your breath?
I didn't know that.
It's not through detox. It's not through those foot pad thingies. It's not from colonics. It's from your breath. But another figure I was reading just the other day, this is for the world, I think it was the World Health Organization, was saying that about 90% of the human population only on average uses about 15% of their lung capacity. That's all.
15%.
just
So
breathe
we've got a whole lot
so
more left
shallow.
inside that chest to be able to push out.
Right.
And so what you're saying is that majority of the detoxing that people are seeking through, so many different things now. I mean, you hear about detoxing all the time, microbiome detoxes, you hear about colonics and so on, You're saying the majority of that detoxing can be done through the breath.
What the science says.
And what I've noticed too about the individuals that have really studied this practice is, one, what I love about it is they all realize they're not the guru, right? There's no gurus. Gurus are dead for the most part. Yes, we have teachers. Yes, we have coaches. We have people working, but the guru side of giving up my power to be able to appease somebody else is done. But what I notice about these people is that they all kind of come up with their own, I would say, systems, their own thoughts, their own inner knowing, and also that they can create energy like this. And when I say energy, they're like, okay, I'm tired, whatever. I'm going to do my maintenance, and at that point in time, now I can go another 4 or 5, 6 hours, or at your point in time, run across lava rocks and do all these other things. Yeah. So I'd say that's some benefits of what you guys do as well.
Without a doubt. That's, especially for people who are capitalists, entrepreneurs, high performance athletes, business owners. The thing is there is really I'm sure everybody out there will agree that there are times where you just have to do stuff you don't want to do. And sometimes you feel like, whack, I just hit that wall and I have to keep pushing anyway. But do you know what that does to your body when you stress yourself and keep going? I mean, the correlation
Put me in
between
the hospital. I know.
lack of sleep
Yep.
and the negative health benefits, the negative health ramifications of just even having one sleepless night, it's huge. And so if I'm able to help people get to a place of calm, be able to calm their mind and their body down where they can get better rest, where they can start, like I said, less cortisol, more oxytocin, more vasopressin, start to release the toxins in their body, increase their lung capacity, because 2 large-scale studies have shown the number one indicator of longevity is breath capacity. I mean, car accidents notwithstanding. But the thing is if people are using 15% of their lungs, their lung capacity is crap. So if you're able to increase your lung capacity, which the Integrated Ascension Method does very quickly, and we can measure this just with actual, I don't even know what it's called.
Well, they have like the HRV that
Yeah.
you can probably measure as well. And did you know, one of the things that you just said to me is that I thought about something. So when you're doing, your pushes and pulls and all these different things through maintenance, one of the things I was told recently is that you can tell the health of somebody, or like one of the biggest things that can show that someone's going to be having health issues is their grip.
Right.
So not only are you teaching grip, you're teaching breath, which you're tying those things in together, which is really incredible. I mean,
And there's more.
and they can do this at home too, right? Like you have an at-home course that you teach, and
2.
cool, very cool.
Yeah, my master class and also my LEAP, or my Life Force Energy Ascension Protocol. That one is a game changer for everybody who does it. I've had literally, and I don't want to make any medical claims, but a good friend of mine who is one of the most famous big wave surfers of all time, he got COVID and almost died. He was on a ventilator for 70 days.
Oh my gosh.
He was in a coma, a medically induced coma for 30 days. And he woke up paralyzed from the neck down. He had to learn how to walk, how to breathe. He had a machine breathing for him at home. So when I met him in Costa Rica in November 2022, and I taught him just even the first exercise, Garuda, the first basic one, after 5 minutes of doing that, he was starting to tear up. And I went and I asked him, Drew, what happened? And he's like, this is the best I've been able to breathe since before I got sick. The next day, we went out and he taught me how to surf. And this is in Nosara in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
He and his wife taught me how to surf. The first time in my life, I finally caught a wave. But he went out and he went way out there and surfed for the first time since he got out of the hospital. So that was after doing this for 5 minutes, Dalton. And so it's this kind of a transformative power, and the results are typical for people who have asthma, people who have had long COVID symptoms, people who have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, things like that. When they start doing this, it rewires them in such a beautiful way. That's why I love doing what I'm doing. And my emphasis really changed from wanting to help everybody in the blind community to wanting to help everybody in the mind community. Because when you think about it, we're all blind. We don't see what we don't see. And so if there's a way that I can help people see, quote unquote, see or perceive more the way that they need to for their experience and their learning now, that's why I'm here. That's why I came back.
Well, I appreciate, first and foremost, you coming back. I appreciate you following your intuition, reading the karate magazine, going on your journeys many times over there, and also following, not getting so stuck on it has to be this way, this is the right way, right? I do think that, it's amazing when we can come together and we can look at what problems are, we can solve those problems, we can think differently. And then to a point in time where we start to find something, then we can make that the right way on our own path. But what's right for someone is not right for everybody. But I love that you're able to give these tools to people that are going through a lot of the long COVID stuff, a lot of where people are having issues breathing, and I can understand why that would help with lung capacity, because it is quite the energetic process to do this. But to take somebody that hasn't been able to breathe surfing not too long after that, that this is what their passions are, you're able to waken them back up to that. So first, if somebody wants to find more about you and they want to, basically say, okay, where can I get more information about this? I want to take this online course you have.
Sure.
Where do they do it at?
Well, if they go to my website, iampure.energy. So I am pure energy, but there's a dot in between pure and energy. So iampure.energy. they'll be able to get my free course right there. I've got a free class as well as my new ebook that I just barely released. It's
Man,
free.
you've been busy.
So I get busy.
I like it.
Yay, AI helping me out with that.
I was going to
stuff.
say, was it through some AI stuff,
This
huh?
is helping me
AI
out
is
with a lot of stuff.
empowering so many people. It's able to get your message out, what you love. I mean, that's why I've been building the software for over a year now, because I saw that would help people like you and I.
Yeah.
Didn't go to high school. Well, that's not true. I went to high school. I barely graduated high school. Didn't do any college. Didn't do a lot of stuff. But to be able to take your ideas and your dreams and goals and be able to put them into something that can help with that, right?
True story.
It's so powerful. Like to me, that's AI to me is very spiritual in that capacity, because it is allowing people to be able to amplify who they are, no different than what you're teaching is how to amplify who you are. So they can find you that way. So you came back from the dead. You're here right now.
Yeah.
One day you're going to choose, maybe not, to leave this planet.
Yeah.
What do you want to be remembered for?
That I left the world, actually, I helped the world be better than when I found it in a time of crisis where every single one of us has the ability to make and affect a change that's going to help further, like future generations, be able to live and sustain this planet. I want to be one of the people that is remembered for helping people personally empower themselves to then facilitate that change in the way that they're here to do it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. What is the one thing you would tell people to do at home that, like today, in their spiritual practice, whatever they're doing? I don't care whether they're religious, whether they're, meditating, or they're in plant-based medicine, or they do all of it. Who knows? What's that one thing that you're like, hey, listen, if I could teach you one thing right now that you can put into your life that will be applicable? Because I believe that if someone's going to listen to and take the time to listen to a podcast, or if they're going to be watching this on YouTube, I believe there should be something they can take away at the end that's actionable. Not, man, I just listen to these two guys have a cool conversation, but now what?
Yeah, absolutely. Most important thing is pay attention to your breath consciously. In through your nose, out through your mouth, or out through your nose. Very rarely, if ever, breathe in through your mouth. Excuse me. So once again, breathing consciously. So as we do this, and we're very conscious about breathing in all the way from the bottom all the way to the top, even raising your shoulders to fill your lungs completely, doing that just a few times a day to remind yourself, where am I? Here. What time is it? Now. Am I present? There's something called email apnea, which is where people are having the same symptoms as sleep apnea, where it's causing heart problems, things like that. But it's from them sitting there looking at Instagram and swiping, and they're holding their breath. And this is actually a known phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
Email
I can see
apnea.
that.
If you
Wow,
look at
email
it, so
apnea.
it's hurting people's health massively. It's a pandemic. It is truly a pandemic that we can all stop. So by breathing consciously and slowly and relaxing our body and asking just the questions, where am I? What time is it? That's from the Way of the Peaceful Warrior book.
By the way, one of my favorite books of all time, changed my life. And that whole series comes back to Socrates. By the way, if you haven't, read this book. It's so good.
Yeah.
And that was that's kind of you in a way, right? You're like the peaceful warrior. I think we kind of all are on that path a little bit. But
at the end, Journeys of Socrates, when he finds that out, I was just bawling.
Yeah, me
like,
too,
you
man.
gotta be kidding me.
I know.
It was great.
Yeah,
So,
Dan Millman is
But yeah,
is
that's
incredible.
the most important thing is remember, you are here for a reason, not just a season. Breathe, pay attention, and also realize every single thing that you're experiencing is here as an experience. It's not a hurdle. It's here for me, not to stop me. And no matter what, I can't screw it up. I'm having the experience. I'm signing up for it. And so to revel in that, even the hard parts, and that's a hard thing to do. But when you go back to your breath and you stay in this present moment, you can't think about the past. You can't think about the future. You cannot have fear, sadness, or anger because you are completely present with yourself. And it feels wonderful and it lasts for a while.
And that's what it means to stay in consciousness.
Correct.
To be conscious, not to go to sleep. And the minute we find we're going to sleep, go back to breath.
Exactly right.
Go back to breath.
And the thing is, you're going to be doing it 20,000 times a day anyway. Might as well do it in a way that helps you rather than hurts you. You're gonna, and if you're not, well, then we don't need to be having this conversation because you're no longer breathing. In which case, you're onto a different experience.
Exactly.
But we all have a lot of opportunities to change this every single day, and it's just, will you step into awareness and consciousness. And just like Nike says, just do it. It's easy, but it does take some mindfulness. And as more people wake up and this mindfulness increases, we get closer to that 100 monkeys.
We do get close to that 100 monkeys. And this is stuff you can teach your kids.
Exactly.
Like, start when they're young. Don't wait till you're my age or someone else's. Like, start when, that doesn't mean you can't do it today, but if you can get your kids to do this stuff, think about how much more awareness they will have. Think about how much they won't be in this place of always reacting. And if you can get your kids where they're not reacting, then guess what? They're going to get better grades. They're probably going to be a lot more mindful about their actions with you as a parent. They're going to be more mindful about what's going on in the world. And they're not going to get this email apnea. Like, I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you coming out, teaching us so many different things, sharing your life stories, your experiences, and that you continue just to lead your own path.
It's my absolute honor, Dalton. And there's a lot more out there. Just check out my website. That'll tell you a lot more than we had a chance to get to today. And however I can assist everybody who's out there, please let us know. Subscribe, like, follow, ring the bell, all the stuff. Follow what we're doing and then ask questions. Because a good friend of mine, very successful business person, but also a very beautiful spiritualist. He says, having the right answer is smart, but having the right question is genius.
Whew. Man, I'll leave that here. I can't wait to have more adventures with you. I'm going to be meeting some of Nate's new friends. We're going to be playing with some of this new technology. I'm sure you'll be able to see them here as well on the Spiritual Capitalist. And who knows, maybe I'll have Nate back on with us. So
Love it.
thank you again, my friend.
Thank you, Dalton.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks.